You did the interview?
Yeah.
Oh, sick. Nice. Like, they mentioned me?
They mentioned the last person.
Yeah.
And just the work that I'd be picking up.
Yeah. No, it was great. I mean, it is non-paid and virtual, but you take what you can get. But it was a super fun experience.
Yeah, these seats are not actually that good.
Yeah. Middling.
I feel bad because I can only be here for a bit. I'm like currently 50% of the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I know at least one other person's coming, but yeah, it's gonna be very
Well, I'm sorry.
intimate. No, you're good. Okay, so I'll just put that.
Handshake emoji in your name.
Handshake emoji?
Oh yeah, because I'm the reason I have that is because I'm ambassador. So what's the most ambassador thing? Business.
Yeah.
We love business.
Yeah.
Okay. I should also unmute this so that now people can hear me. Obviously that made so much noise on desktop, but we're not starting yet, so that should be okay.
Yeah.
So then 5:15.
Mhm.
You're good to start.
Cool.
Mouse is the clicker. Let me wear my shoes. Like if people join on Discord, it's like, how do I not make sure that goes through? But we'll figure that out. And by figure it out, I mean I'm just gonna go to here. That's not the here I wanted. Here, and I'm just gonna absolutely cut all my audio, so you can't hear anything from the stream. W.
Cool. Hi.
Okay.
It's a little crowd. Yeah, she's my friend from another club.
No worries. No
Yeah.
worries. Welcome.
It seems to be a busy day for a lot of people. I mean, you can even. I thought that when I saw that thing downstairs, I'm like, amazing to be able to make it up.
When I first saw that, I was like, oh, that's great. It's exactly what I want to be seeing right now.
Yeah, I thought it was like fully closed, but
They were telling everybody on the first floor, like,
Yeah.
you gotta relocate.
yeah, I was actually
Oh,
on the first
cool.
floor.
I feel like I think I still saw people on the red couches where we were earlier.
Brad.
Yeah, that it worked.
Is there a career fair downstairs?
Yeah, I think so.
Global experience, something.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of slashed most of their global experiences
Yeah.
recently.
But it's not the office's fault. That came from higher up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's like, what do they have to even say now?
Something apparently.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. You know what? Let me just move my stuff over to a seat. So I can
Maybe we'll use this as like a. Does the mouse work? Oh, there we
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Sick. Okay, cool. I've already presented this 3 times. I did like this club where I presented something to high schoolers. It was like a club here at Northeastern. It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
So this is the refined product.
So is it a club?
This is a club, yeah. The Northeastern Game Developers Club.
IGDA
Yeah.
Game Development Club. You have like 3 names. I'm not sure about it, but like yeah, pretty much. Yeah, this is a club talk, I guess.
Not the usual meeting time though, so it doesn't.
Not yes, and that's tomorrow because we have Turtle Tech. So
Turtle Tech.
another company.
Yeah.
There's like I don't know how many people we have from there, but we have a few.
It's a spin-off. I guess you'll learn more about the place you're applying to.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, my bosses were super chill. Like, you probably got that vibe there. Yeah.
That's the sense I got.
Yeah.
Did you feel the company had a lot of structure or not really?
No. So it depends on what you're looking for and what you want. It's kind of like the opposite end of structure. I mean, in my ideal work environment, it's almost like the ideal work environment if money wasn't a concern,
Mm-hmm.
if there wasn't really any outside concern.
Yeah.
But they can they do have a tool. What's the other one other than Jira? It's the
Trello.
Trello. Yeah, I didn't even look at it though. Like I didn't even know it was a thing. I just asked if it was or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I was kind of rolling with that, but they said that like they could account for anything, like if you wanted to be put on it and have that sort of schedule. So yeah, like part of my design for this game is kind of a result of doing whatever the hell I want. And like I felt like it turned out really well, but like in terms of like an actual work environment, it doesn't really simulate a like in the industry sort of environment.
What was a day in the life like?
Working on whatever I wanted. I would tell them what I'm working on, and I would sometimes get pushback, and I would present counter arguments, be like, "This is actually really good." Sometimes I would actually just like not do what I pitched to them, but I would do like a different version of it that aligned more with the game's principles. So, like, it was like 6 to 8 hours a day. Like
Summer internship?
it was over. It was last semester, and then into the summer for a bit. Yeah, I actually paused for one half of the summer to take a summer class. My boss was like, "Sure, do that," and I resumed it for the second half of summer.
So you were combining internship and studies?
Yeah, so I did the bulk of my internship, and then I did a one half of summer class, and then I resumed for the last half of summer the work. So.
In terms of questions, how do you want to do it? Do you want to just do like questions at the end, or?
I'm fine with anything, like during and, I mean, if we can probably just say like.
Let's do towards the end,
Yeah.
because I know we don't have this room after 6. It's
Yeah.
another group, and it's probably a bit more serious, and they will 9 times out of 10 tell us that we need to leave.
Mhm.
So,
Cool.
okay, so you are good. You are good to start.
Yeah.
I can also just introduce. So, welcome to the industry talk. I know it's a very short crowd, very small group. We have Morgan Willis. He's a Northeastern student.
Yeah.
And worked at Oath Games,
Mhm.
correct? So he's going to be giving his industry talk about his time at Oath Games and kind of the valuable lessons he learned and kind of just some insights into I guess like the smaller kind of indie industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Morgan, take it away.
Cool. Yeah, so this is my experience working on an MMO. Okay, there we go. So yeah, this class is more of a narrative instead of like a traditional like, this is what's good to do officially. I mean, we all know that the games industry with education, it's like, how do you educate it? So there's no real like one answer for that. So it's more like me going through what I did and kind of finding the patterns in the structures of things I did that I didn't really even pay attention to in the first place. So it's kind of like a retrospective in a way. So yeah, the part 1 is learning the ropes. MMOs, I'm pretty sure mostly know what MMOs are, but they're like online adventure games that you kind of interact with other people. You usually play for a really long time. You kind of like stay with one character, make multiple ones. All about grinding, like doing skills over and over. Skilling is a concept of getting experience in mining, wood cutting, all that sort of stuff. And so it's kind of open-ended. This game especially has no real main story. So I'm kind of in there to expand the world with side quests and things like that. This is a short little video of something on the first island, just kind of wandering around and killing stuff. This is my god account, so it's really good. As you can see, you just kind of click on enemies to attack them. You just kind of click on trees to start chopping. There's not much like gameplay involved in the chopping and things like that. It's more just kind of like a half like AFK sort of game. And you can get upgrades like better axes and things like that where you chop quicker. And so like the time ratio of things, you get more stuff per second. Yeah, so here's a brief timeline. This game came out in 2023 and it flopped, like it failed completely. People did not play it. They overpromised like crazy. Like people were hyped for it, the people in the crowd, but like there was no content. They made a great engine. Like I can say that I worked in it. It's a custom engine in Unity. I did very little coding whatsoever. They have their own unique visual scripting system. But so they did all that and then just didn't add any content. Had some really bad writers, typos everywhere, and they monetized it in just like an egregious way for what the content was. And so now you can see that all-time reviews are mixed. It used to be very negative, so it's slowly getting up there. But yeah. So and then a player saw promise in the game and bought it from the original developers, and so I worked for that player, became my boss. He had no game design experience, game development, or coding experience. Just wanted to make it anew in a way. So yeah. So my first task was just to straight up play the game. And honestly, it's not really my type of game. I've never really played an MMO before, in like a proper MMO. Although, I mean, I didn't really mind that. I just like designing things regardless if I'm actually going to be the target audience for it. So I was on the starting island, and I was like, okay, this writing's pretty bad. There's this spider infestation on the starting island, and the reasoning was pretty bad and all this stuff. So I came up with this whole quest idea and pitched it to my bosses about how to make it a lot better, just having with a lot more various characters doing different things in and out. However, I soon realized something, that since it's the same world state for all players in MMOs, in most MMOs they're like this, all NPCs are in the same place for everyone. So like if this room was in the game, you'll all just be sitting there eternally if you're NPCs. Or if one of you's moving, you'd be moving for everyone. So if I were to design a quest that would involve an NPC going somewhere else to do something with them at that point, or having them move around and talking to other NPCs, I can't really have that happen much, or it'd be kind of like inferred and off screen. So that places a big constraint on developing quests. So this is a departure from many games I've played and how I typically think about narrative design. I've tended to play a lot of offline story-based sort of games. And so this is kind of like a side thing. My view on what I think is good quest design, personally, pre-ethereal, kind of post, but like I've kind of merged some thoughts in that way. So I've mostly played games where the player plays as defined characters with their own backstories, own beliefs, things like that. These characters as developer get involved in interpersonal relationships, and quests are like what becomes of that. It's kind of getting involved in some conflict and then being able to resolve it and coming out with a different perspective on things. And also, it can also be about exploring the character's own self. So 2 examples I have here. This is Trails Through Daybreak, where the main character runs an office where he handles what he says like complicated matters for people who don't want to go to the police with some issues. He kind of like skirts the law. And so there's already an impetus there of why people are coming to him with these matters, and like why he's going out and checking like bulletin boards and things like that for things like that. Because in a lot of games, it's just kind of like an abstraction instead of a fully justified thing. And this is a slightly different example with Returnal, where there's actually only one character in the game, but who is on an isolated planet. But she starts finding things from her own life on the planet, and it's really diving deep into her own psyche and has to do with other people in her life, but just not necessarily fully present. There's a lot of showing and not telling in that way that I think is a really good choice. So yeah, I'm all about finding ways to have interpersonal relationships with conflict or what have you as the starting of like a quest. So yeah, however, in ethereal and many games, the player is the character, which kind of hampers some potential in that way, but there are ways to play around it, which you'll see. So yeah, more on how I design that soon. So playing the game some more, I came upon these things called tasks. With tasks, you kind of go to this task board, and then you get a task saying like, craft me XYZ things, and then turn it in. So when I first did this, I thought it was like a normal quest, and so I did it, and I expected something to happen, but there really wasn't anything to happen. It was just like flavor text of like, oh, I'll deliver these to like the noble who requested it or something like that. So when you do a task, the time it takes to work on it, let's say like blacksmithing all these items here, when you turn it in, you get double the experience points you did making them. So when you want to grind experience points, you usually do the tasks and then turn it all in to get more stuff. And so very quickly it becomes kind of like dailies and like a mobile game in a way. And it, to me, it's very much for a specific crowd of the players, because there's gonna be a lot of casual players in this game who just don't want to do like the same thing over and over in that way. And I think that there is a middle ground, and I was kind of ruminating on that as I was playing it. So there's more on this later. This is just me first playing through the game. And eventually I passed the starting island after around 10 to 15 hours, and I reached the mainland called Iramessa. This is Edgevine City. And I was like, whoa, it's so big, there's so much stuff to do. And then 10 minutes later, I was like, whoa, it's so big, there's nothing to do. It's so hard to get around. Yeah, so I soon realized the lack of content in a way from before. See, there is content, like from the new development team here and there. It just still has a long way to go. So this is part 2, learning the ropes by doing now. So when I started on this, after I played the game, my boss made a new map called Morgan's Book Club. And there's some complications now with me being able to access it in the editor, so I'm just going to give you a visual representation of what it looked like. So first, he made this giant man on this island. It's just a grid island of grass, just to show me what the character editor was like in making NPCs. And so he was like, okay, you can give him all these clothes, you can give him a shoulder plate. So it was like a conch shell shoulder plate. And then he's now holding a big book. So this is just showing me how to add things to a character and modify them. So I then made 3 other small characters on the island, all pretty similar looking, as a family of a mother, father, and son. And I made a really rudimentary house that kind of looks like a Minecraft house, except way taller. It's just wood planks on each side going really high up in the sky because my boss was showing me how to build on elevated levels like that. So I was then tasked with making my first quest with whatever I wanted to do. That was not in the actual game, but just on my own island. So how I approach quests and things like this is first finding the puzzle pieces. So on this island is a giant, oddly dressed man. There's a weird, tall house. There's a weird family on this barren island. Why is it like this? So if I can't exactly get the player involved for a character reason, I'm gonna make it weird. Like I just really like grabbing players' attention by doing things that are unconventional. So solving this sort of puzzle. So the Island of the Giant Man reminds me of Gulliver's Travels. Like really old book, but it was adapted like a 2010 movie with Jack Black. Giant man comes to an island with small people. So what would realistically happen if a giant man washed up? And I think he'd get worshipped. Like if this is like these like rudimentary like beliefs and things like that. Like if a giant person washes up on your shore, I think anyone would be like this was brought here for a reason. So I thought of the tall house and thought of the Tower of Babel from the Bible. So since the man washed up, everything he had is soaked. His book is water damaged. The family reads the section that alludes to the Tower of Babel, but it's water damaged, so it's all messed up. They think they should build a house of wood to the sky. Here, the gather element is added. This is what the player can do to help them gather wood. And so in this way, I made my first quest because it's very heavily alluded that the book is just straight up the Bible, but they misread it, and you're just feeding into their delusions, basically. So, but the thing is, if they messed it up, shouldn't the man correct them? So I thought of, okay, he hit his head, so we can't communicate well. Whenever I find plot holes, I'll just like create a new reason why and like allude to it. Won't directly like say it, just adds more flavor to it. So I just thought like once I made this, I was like, why not make it an actual quest in the game? So I did. I actually put it right at the bottom here of Edgevine City. So when the players leave, they see this little dirt path, and they're like, what's going on there? I kept the same energy, but kept the references to the Bible just references. I referenced an in-universe religion instead. So a lot of characters will, they follow like the Great Flame is what's in universe. And so me making this quest got me looking into what the history of that religion is in this universe, just to see what I could do with it. So the family are outcasts of Edgevine City. That's why they're out here. Little Charlie, who's the son, first found the man on the seaside here while playing. The water damaged text mentions the mother's name directly. Soon they're all convinced that this is the one true religion. So part 3 is interconnectedness, and you'll see what I mean in a little bit. So it's about breadth versus depth. So this is a topic my boss and I were talking about with things like this. I wanted to keep adding quests that reference previous characters because I made some quests that were detached from each other, but I kind of had to rely on like humor and things like that as a crutch to build characters because otherwise people are just going to kind of mash through dialogue in a way. So I feel like adding more quests after like a funny start that become more and more serious is kind of like how I like to do things, and I found that players were also like that as well. So is it keep expanding the world, making independent plot lines, or have recurring side characters? So I did a compromise with my boss of doing a little mix of both. So I still had plot lines to wrap up with that Babbles, which is the last name of the people. I just took Babel and twisted it around a bit. But I can be creative about it. So this is introducing the old scrap quest. Once you're done with the first quest with the Babbles, there's a 10% chance on this map here. Around here, there's some thieves. They have a 10% chance to drop something called the old scrap. And this here is what is dropped. And if the player remembered what the damaged version looked like that they got from the big man, they'll see that it matches up. So this is the version that the Babbles read, and it mentions the mom's name directly there. So in this case, I sort of test the player's knowledge of where they should bring this scrap, because as soon as it drops from the thief, there's a quest that starts where it's like, who should you bring this to? And so you get bonuses if you bring it to the Babbles. You can also bring it to a monk that is part of another quest. And then you can also bring it to the priests in the capital city, all to get a bit more flavor info on what it is, and also an early source of gold, because there's a lot of big reward from this. So, yeah. Then, cheese thieves. So, a prior developer left behind blueprints for various quests. This was actually the first quest I made for the game. So I picked one up called the Cheese Thieves. And how this works is that the original quest outline was pretty vague on some things, so I kind of implemented it with my own weird touches. So it's about this family that has their house broken into, but only cheese is stolen, and they're trying to find someone to help find out what happened. So the player can go in there. I just made this little bit here with brick instead of wood, and so I was like, I don't want to redo that. I'm just going to make them be rich people who came here and basically just they got outcast from the original home and tried to retrofit this to make it a bit better. So I made their writing really pompous to also lean into the fact that losing just cheese is devastating to them, whereas other people in the block are just trying to get by. So you can investigate the various parts of the house, and then you'll see that whoever the thieves were somehow escaped via a grate behind the house. And so once you go down to the sewers from another way, you'll go and find that it was just rats who stole the cheese. And so you can come back and tell them the news, and they're devastated. So that was just one I implemented. And then I was thinking having a part 2, because logically simply killing some rats wouldn't be enough. So how is it actually put to the end for good? Since there's only one grate the rats escape from, I designed a second part to the quest all about making a new grate with smaller holes. There's interpersonal challenges abound, because I made this one a lot more serious, actually. So one of the husband in the family prompts comes up with this idea, makes a petition sheet that he has you go down the whole street and have the different residents sign it of this shanty town because the rats are coming back. And so you go to the lawbringer, the law people in the world, and they reject it because they don't want to put resources into this part of town. And so you go back to the man, and he's like, what else can we do? And so you decide to go to a local blacksmith to just have it made locally. And so the blacksmith kind of goes into the history of the place, and it's the persecution and things like that. And you make a new grate. I had it a little mechanic where it takes him an hour to make the grate, but you can go to a workshop and work on something called grate part. And it takes 10 seconds to make each part, and that's equivalent to 1 minute shaved off the hour. So I like to introduce small little gimmicks like that because they're just not really common in MMOs. So what keeps you going when you're making stuff with an online game is that you get immediate feedback for everything you do, and so any bit of people say anything good is just this is why I do this. Yeah, it's a benefit of working on something that's online instead of just offline where no one can really test your stuff or play your stuff. So yeah, so this is a sort of a side thing. When I was talking with my boss, especially in implementing the part 2 of Cheese Thieves and why I was able to go do it. Quests, at least in this game, really need a gameplay purpose, especially in MMOs. So as part of pitching my quest, I have to have a strong reason for players to complete that quest. Otherwise, if the player can gain more resources and things like that from just grinding their skills in the same time it takes to complete the quest. They'll just do that. So for example, if I have a quest that gives the player 500 woodcutting experience at the end of it, but the time, let's say the quest takes 20 minutes. If they could get more than 500 woodcutting just by cutting trees in 20 minutes, some players will just do that because they min-max the routes through the game. And so I want to make sure that my quests are fun and available and for all players, or at least most players. And so I need to think about the time completed and think about the rewards and how it's going to be better than just grinding and things like that. And so for Cheese Thieves Part 2, it was built around giving you access to a new, faster route to the sewers, because the new grate allows you to flip it up and go down into the sewers. And in the sewers is the first main dungeon of the game. So players are encouraged to complete both Parts 1 and 2 so that they can just quickly go down whenever someone else wants to run that dungeon. All right, so Part 4. This is the time I spent the most on developing by far, the gathering tasks. So this looks like a lot at first, but I'll go through this. When I talked about tasks earlier, those were mostly to do with crafting tasks. So basically, you'll say like, craft me 3 shoulder plates, craft me, XYZ, like some wooden object. You'll go to a workstation and craft those out. But the resources you need to craft with are ones you get by gathering. And my bosses were like, we have plans to make more gathering tasks, but we don't have many implemented yet. So I wanted to start making these gathering tasks. And as you can see here, there are different tiers of, this is, for example, ore. Tier 1 means levels 1 through 5 in someone's mining experience. Then they're able to access iron from levels 6 to 10, coal from 11 to 15, so on and so forth. And so as players reach higher levels, they get access to new, better ores that are crafted for better things. And you can see that like the experience for each one goes up because the player's experience to reach the next level goes up tremendously. So why I bring this up is because the crafting tasks scale to the player's level. So if they have level 16 blacksmithing, they will be given a task to make things in that level range. So it's not just kind of worthless and they're not making like really basic tier things. This means any player can kind of pick them up at any time. So there was one implemented gathering task that one of my bosses made, this guy named Simon Horvath, because what they wanted to do with the gathering tasks is have people in the world be the ones who like give them to you instead of just being on a board, which I agreed with. It adds more character to it. So this is a gathering task in a mine. And as you can see here, for example, it says gather 50 gold ore, 50 silver, 50 iron ore. It was only set for the first 3 tiers. So once a player gets past level 15, they have no real reason to do this anymore, which I wanted to change. And if you can see here, there's this weird little tag, gather 6 elemental outcroppings. So for these tasks, we thought that the player could just accept the task, go and buy all the resources from like an online market or in-game market for super cheap, and just turn in the task and get double experience for all that for doing nothing. So that's why the idea of task items became a thing. So only when you're on the task and you mine an appropriate node, like for example, like a gold ore, silver ore, iron ore, there'll be an item that drops that you can pick up. And you cannot drop it from your inventory, you can't give it to anyone else, etc. And so it kind of, and then we do the calculations where you'll pretty much get to 6, for example, elemental outcroppings by the time you get this many ores. And so you have to turn those in as well to kind of prove that you actually did it. But yeah, this is really only valuable for players level 1 through 15. There's this voucher system. So whenever you turn in a task for him, he'll give you a voucher for his company. And once you reach like 15 vouchers, you can get, or actually it was like 25, you can get a pickaxe that slightly speeds up your speed when mining in the mine. But the mine really only had lower tier ore, so it's like the players didn't really have much of a reason to do this. There was another item at 50 tickets that will permanently increase your mining speed everywhere, only by like 3%. But the player kind of had to do a bunch of rudimentary tasks here in order to get to that. that won't really impact their experience levels at all because it's so low. So I took this sort of concept and massively expanded it. I made a whole new task system for each discipline. And I actually went back to the Babools and made them one of it. So once you complete at least their first quest, they're like, we need more wood to keep building it higher. So each time you do a task with them, it's the number of tasks you do is recorded. And once you get to certain intervals, there's a new curated quest that happens that kind of gives you a break from just the rudimentary tasks. Some sort of problem that happens and you need to give them stuff or do something for them in order to fix it. And so in that way, I wanted to bring in players who wanted more of a curated quest experience into this. Each time you complete one of those, you rank up with the person. So each time you rank up, so for example, this is a task for the herbalism for gathering plants. His name is Mr. Friend, and this is the quest. You need 24 of the task items for that to turn in. But when you rank up for the first time, you now turn in 21. So how I design this is that for rank 1, the time it takes to get to the max to the threshold of task items is around 1.5 times the length it takes to get the other required materials. So you're going to be waiting on getting more task items. So when you rank up, you're basically you need to spend less time on it each time. And I designed it such that with 5 ranks, once you get to rank 5, the amount of task items you need is exceeded before you get the threshold of the other items. And why I did it that way is that all extra task items you turn in past the threshold get added to a tally. And once you turn in a certain amount of extra task items, you get another voucher. So I made this whole system to kind of reward players doing this over time, and making it easier and easier until the quote-unquote meta turns into maximizing the amount of task items you give. So I wanted to make each task feel different, because if it's kind of just the same thing reskinned for each person, like players will know in that way. Like there's not as much of like fun in that sort of thing, because the tasks on the billboard or the board are all just like make this it's just a reskin of something else. So these are examples of, so there's different motivations for each task giver. For example, the Babools want to keep building their house higher. The herbalism guy, he has an obsession with rats and thinks they're like great, and so he wants you to give them herbalism to feed them, and then wants you to give them seeds so they can start trying to plant their own stuff. He wants to make them farmers. So there's different bonuses. For example, with that herbalism guy, some of the rats have grown intelligent enough to offer a boating service. And so whenever you complete a task with him, he gives you rat candy. And you can give rat candy to rats to go up and down a river. And so players will see things like these rats sitting on small boats and be like, what is this? And then other players will kind of tell them like, oh, like do this like task thing. Which is interesting because players have this presupposition that tasks are just a thing. They're like grinding dailies or whatever, when I've kind of turned into something else. So here is an example of, so each, with task items, I wanted to make gathering from each profession different. So when you're mining, this is really, it's really bad quality, but when you're mining rocks, instead of a crystal just appearing and you click it once to get it, when a crystal spawns, you keep clicking it over and over to gather more crystal shards. But if you stay there when it explodes, which will there, all of your crystals are lost that you just gathered. So it's about looking at the sparks flashing, and when it gets really fast, you just bolt out with all the crystals you got. And if you can see here, you're getting more crystals per time. Like, I think here I got like 3 or 4. So I then increase the amount you need to turn in, because originally the amount you needed to turn was just 6. I increased it to like 24 at rank 1. But you can see here, this is the herbalism one. Different seeds will then spawn on the ground, and they'll have different puffs depending on how long they'll stay out. That's what that shows. And so you kind of go around collecting each one. to try to do it in time. So I just wanted to make the gameplay different there. And so I started to think about like what other games kind of do something like this. And I was thinking about roguelikes, which are games, you know, that you kind of do something over and over. It's usually randomized and at least fun to do over and over. And a lot of them will have meta progression or things that keep going every time you do a run. Like if you die or something, you have like a currency that you can still spend to do something. So I thought of things like Hades, for example, and it's Mirror here, where whenever you die, you still keep a certain currency, and then you can give yourself buffs for the next run and all subsequent runs. So I wanted to do something kind of similar, especially with those vouchers that the player got each time, because right now, the really only valuable item in each task ever was just once you get 50 vouchers, you get like that buff, like 3% buff on gathering items. And so I wanted to make something more fun and unique. So I made a whole boon system. So with boons, whenever you buy them, there's like a new wrinkle added to the gathering stuff. And I try to make it relatively like a new mechanic that's skill-based that gets you to get stuff quicker. So this is an avenue for breadth, like I talked about earlier, just like curated things versus things that players can do over time. So at first, I made all my boons just a one and done thing. Like for example, with this mining one, while on a task, when a vein does not spawn a combustion crystal, you get one combustion crystal shard. So it's kind of like a makeup, because sometimes they wouldn't spawn. There's like a 70% chance of them actually spawning, but this is just like so someone can buy this if they want that permanent buff for all tasks going forward for 5 vouchers. But since it was just something that players can get once, and then, you know, they're going to still rack up vouchers after they get all these boons, I then made each one multi-use. And so it's the same thing for the first use, but the second to 5th use, there's now more percent chance to get an additional shard under the above circumstances. And so I basically add a lot of content really quickly by just adding that sort of thing. Instead of having to do like just make more individual boons, I can just make more abilities on the same one like that. And each time you still have to pay 5 vouchers for it. And so this allows us as the developers more time to make, like it kind of allows us more time before players hit the quote unquote like end of the content we've made for certain things. So that's about it for the presentation. The key takeaways: designing with what you have under constraints. So for example, with quests and having people be in one place, or just moving around for everyone, designing things around that, adding a lot of humor to it, and things like that. Always keeping the purpose of your content in mind, because a lot of players may not be like you. If you're someone who just likes narrative, a lot of players may not really care for it and just be there for the gameplay benefits, and so you have to think about that. You don't need to be a fan of the genre to make good content in it. In fact, having a background outside of that genre can even help. I actually had a player, when I was fixing something for him in game, he DM'd me in the game and said that he's played tons of MMOs and that my quests are like unique among most quests he's played, and that's pretty much due to I'm not really exposed to this genre much, and I want to take things from other mediums and kind of put those ideas in it. There's this niche book I read called City of Saints and Madmen, and one of my whole quests was like a parody of it. And it's a very weird quest. It's all about rats and glowing fungus and sewers and like weird scraps and someone going insane. And like it was actually that led into the Mr. Friend thing. And you can just kind of take something from other things, parody it, or just take some concepts, and it's basically just a whole new thing when you take it into another medium. Be crazy, chaotic, and bold. Everyone has seen the generic kill monsters quest before. This also is kind of a turnout of me not really having many constraints in terms of like my ideas. So I would just make random new things that were based on pre-existing things I made. For example, there's a whole task system that is locked behind another task system that I didn't really tell players about. And so a key game design thing you want to do is to make it feel like the limits in the game are actually really hazy, where it's like, I'm going to find a whole new system randomly stumbling upon it, when it was kind of designed for players to find it. They just didn't expect it. So yeah. Find ways to ease casual players into the more grindy and time-consuming content. Because if you what I saw with my developers is that, or my bosses, is that like they were making a lot of stuff for the really grindy hardcore players, and I felt like a lot of casual players were kind of getting turned off in the game. So I wanted to make more intro level things. So that's why I made it so that the rank up quests are quicker in succession to begin with in your tasks. So for example, there's a rank up when you do your third task, your I believe 8th, 16th, and then 32nd. So players know that that is a concept of like ranking up. Once you like the third one, it'd be like, okay, how far does it go? And they're more locked into the content at the time. So yeah, I won't read this all of it just because it's just gonna be shilling me. But again, just the idea of working on an online game that I didn't really realize at first is that like you get a lot of support from the community. I mean, if you interact with them a lot, especially with smaller games like this. And so when my boss sent a message on like, you know, ending my co-op there, like they got so many reactions like this. People were saying like, no, Morgan's leaving. I still go back to fix bugs, of course, because you'll always make bugs. But yeah, it was a really cool experience. So yeah, that's all.
All right. Does anyone have any questions for Morgan about like just his experience and kind of like some stuff that he talked about?
Yeah.
What happens if you show the whole family the original Bible?
So
Do they stop building? Or?
Yeah. So the thing is with things like this is that like if I had the player do that, it would end like if they believed them, it would just end the whole thing totally. So I made it so that they are like, this is like false. This is heresy, what you just brought me. And you have a dialogue choice of saying, I agree with you, or just saying like, this is actually real. And if you agree with them, they're like, that's a good servant. And then they'll give you a lot of vouchers. And if you disagree with them, she gets very angry at you and you're not allowed to do tasks for like a couple days. And so I like to add a lot of small things like that. My view on choices in games, and I'll be brief about this, but making choices that are like morals that are relative to the situation. Like technically the most moral thing to do is to tell them it's fake, but relative to the situation, you want benefits from them. So just go along with them. And so with most of my quests and tasks, I kind of have that as a theme and I kind of want the player to like feel complicit in things that are like not that great, because it just expanding the range of emotions players feel while playing. So.
Okay. So you came onto this game after it was open release. Is that correct?
It's on Steam.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So as far as that goes, when you said like constraints, right?
Yeah.
Were you kind of like, were you based off like the mechanics constraints? I'm assuming because like chopping wood versus other stuff like that. What were some of like the actual mechanics besides that? Because I felt like was it just like an MMO in the sense that you're just going around? There's no like actual action that you can take within thing besides, I don't know. Maybe that's kind of not making sense.
Yeah. So other examples of constraints to do with the world, like objects. Like if you want to go around and inspect objects, I can't actually have like a scratched up item. I have to just have the player right click it and then read that it's scratched up, because then it'll be scratched up for all players when, like, let's say they might get replaced later on in the story. Also, you can't really have a changed world state in that sense. So like after someone finishes a task for them, like if they were like living in a bad place and they want to move somewhere else, you can't really have them move. You could do like a big world state shift where it's like if enough players have completed the quest, you can have that happen. But other mechanical constraints, the visual scripting system, pretty rudimentary, and so I had to do a lot of finagling and creative uses of it to do what I wanted it to do. And my bosses even told me like they've looked at some of my stuff and they're like they said my boss said I was expecting this to be complex, but this is around like 4 times as complex as I thought it was going to be. So I made some docs and things of reading through my stuff, like how to access it, because I come from like a CS student and game design student background, and my bosses were like, we just designed the code or the nodes for dummies. But with the systems I wanted to do, I had to be really creative with working with those nodes and abstracting however much I could. So like constraints, mostly mechanical, also narratively, because there's no real main narrative, and I couldn't really set much into stone. My boss was like, right now we don't want anything like fully new to impact the lore of the game. So when I do things like that, I kind of make it like heresy or like hearsay. or things that aren't like kind of like the Dark Souls way, to be like, this might be it if the people are obviously unreliable who you're talking to. So yeah.
So given that again you were in like a very kind of small-esque studio and you had a lot of creative freedom, what would you? I assume, like, again, your day-to-day, like, if your boss gave you a task and you had finished implementing that task, would you just kind of like, would you kind of do more exploring in the game and kind of say like, okay, it's missing this thing, and then kind of try to work on that in your free time? Or what would your process be like if you were to finish a task that your boss may have assigned you, and then you were looking for some additional work?
Yeah, I would literally just be like, what I think this needs more, and most of the time you okayed it, and I added what it needed. And so there's a lot of really small random things that happen. What I especially like designing is making players feel like they're 1 in 100 players who discovered something. And so I would do small permutations in quest lines to accurately, like, for characters to react to what players did. I also would add dialogue to pretty much all NPCs involved in the quest for each step of the quest. So if players ever went back to a previous person, they would actually have new dialogue that has to do with this quest. Actually, there's a side thing I did, and I talked to my bosses about this, and they're like, yeah, like, it is time consuming, but this is kind of like a test grind to see if players will actually pay attention to this. For every quest, every task up to task number 32 in the mines of the game, like we're with the coal miner, there's 3 NPCs who mine in there, and their dialogue updates every single task to have stories of their own. And so I would do small things like that, and most of the time it would get okayed, honestly. And so it's resulted in very unique content. Yeah.
Anyone else have any other questions?
What happens when player reaches the highest rank? Is
Yeah.
there a scenario for game over, or they just?
So the game is meant to be endless, and we're adding more tiers, is what we call it, like, as we go. So we actually have a lot of math in this, and usually each next 5 levels takes like an exponentially longer time to get through than the lower tier, because at that point players are already like really invested in the game, and they don't need as much like fast dopamine to keep going. So it's up to tier 8 right now, and we're slowly rolling out a tier 9 of a bunch of different things, like tier 9 trees, tier 9 rocks, tier 9 like fighting level. So there's no real end to the game.
No magicians?
I mean, there is magic. There is magic. That's one of the it's a skill. It's one of the skills you can have. Yeah.
Take one more. Any last minute questions?
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
I think thank you so much, Morgan. This was really incredible. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So other than that, tomorrow another industry talk. We will be having Turtle Tech. So be sure to show up for that. That will be in Hastings Hall, room 113.
Usual room.
I'm gonna say 113. Yes, usual room. At 7:30. So everyone's welcome. So feel free. And yeah, thank you again, Morgan. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
I can close that.
Sick. All right. Have you played any games?